2025 is not just another year, it is the dawn of a new era. Across Africa, young leaders are rising with vision, courage, and power. They are not waiting for permission to lead, they are taking charge and rewriting the story of Black empowerment for generations to come.
Welcome to Black Voice USA, the channel where history meets the future. Here, we amplify Black stories, celebrate culture, expose injustice, and empower voices that the world needs to hear. From past struggles to today's victories and tomorrow's vision, this is where truth speaks loud and clear. Join the movement, subscribe, and let your voice rise with ours.
Africa is the youngest continent in the world, and its youth are no longer just dreaming about the future, they are building it. In 2025, this new generation is breaking barriers in technology, politics, culture, and business. Their ideas are bold, their voices are strong, and their influence is global. From Lagos to Nairobi, from Johannesburg to Accra, young leaders are showing the world that Africa is not defined by its struggles, but by its unstoppable strength and creativity. This is the rise of Africa's new generation of leaders, fearless, determined, and ready to shape a future where Black empowerment is not just a movement, but a reality. In Kenya, the success story of M-Pesa is only the beginning. Young innovators are building on that foundation to create even more advanced financial tools. Mobile money has transformed lives, but now the next step is digital investment platforms, AI-powered credit systems, and blockchain-based solutions that ensure transparency and trust. These innovations are not just making business easier, they are bringing millions of people into the financial system who were previously excluded. That is empowerment on a massive scale. But technology is not limited to finance. In South Africa, young developers are using artificial intelligence to improve healthcare. Imagine an app that can analyze a photo of your skin and detect diseases before they become serious, or a chatbot that provides reliable medical advice in local languages. These are not futuristic dreams, they are happening now. The beauty of these innovations is that they are built for Africans, by Africans, addressing challenges that Western solutions often ignore. In Ghana, the rise of digital agriculture is giving farmers tools they never had before. With smartphones, farmers can now track weather patterns, access real-time market prices, and even receive digital training on how to improve their yields. For generations, African farmers worked with limited resources, vulnerable to unpredictable weather and unfair pricing. Now, technology is giving them power, the power to make informed decisions, to increase their income, and to feed communities more sustainably. Renewable energy is another area where young Africans are making waves. With vast sunlight across the continent, solar power is no longer just a dream, it is a necessity. Young entrepreneurs are developing portable solar kits that provide electricity to villages miles away from the nearest power grid. These innovations are changing lives in real time. Children can study at night, small businesses can keep running, and healthcare centers can store vaccines safely. In many places, young innovators are doing what governments could not, bringing light and energy to communities that were left in the dark for decades. The story of Africa's digital empowerment is not just about local impact, it is also about global recognition. Investors from Silicon Valley, Europe, and Asia are increasingly turning their eyes to Africa, realizing that the next big technological breakthroughs may not come from traditional tech hubs, but from cities like Lagos, Nairobi, or Cape Town. The presence of global investment is empowering more young innovators to scale their ideas, proving that Africa is not just catching up with the world, but leading it in specific industries. Education plays a critical role in this transformation. Across the continent, coding boot camps and online learning platforms are teaching young Africans skills that were once inaccessible. A teenager in rural Uganda can now learn programming from YouTube, connect with mentors via Zoom, and contribute to open-source projects that are used worldwide. This democratization of knowledge is a revolution in itself. It breaks down barriers of geography and wealth, allowing anyone with a smartphone and determination to participate in the digital economy. Of course, challenges remain. Access to stable internet is still limited in many regions. Hardware can be expensive, and electricity is not always reliable. But what makes this generation different is their resilience. They are finding ways around these obstacles, creating offline solutions, sharing devices, and pushing for policies that expand access. Where there are challenges, they see opportunities. The spirit of innovation is not confined to big cities. Rural communities, too, are beginning to benefit from digital transformation. In Ethiopia, young engineers are using drones to deliver medical supplies to remote villages. In Rwanda, data-driven platforms are being used to monitor crop health and prevent food shortages. These solutions prove that innovation in Africa is not about copying Western models, but creating unique approaches that suit the continent's realities. What makes this wave of technology so powerful is the sense of ownership it brings. For too long, Africa's image in global media was one of aid and charity. But the new generation of leaders is showing the world that Africa does not need to be saved. Africa needs to be invested in, respected, and recognized. The young coders, engineers, and entrepreneurs are not waiting for outsiders to solve their problems. They are the problem solvers, the innovators, the leaders. Every app developed, every startup launched, every digital solution implemented is more than just a business venture. It is a declaration of independence, a message that Africa's future belongs to its own people. Technology has become the tool of empowerment, giving young Africans the means to control their destiny. As we look across the continent in 2025, one thing is undeniable. Africa is no longer the future. It is the present. The young generation has turned challenges into opportunities and ideas into revolutions. They are proving to the world that innovation knows no boundaries and that Africa's time is now. This is not just technology. This is empowerment in its purest form, driven by passion, fueled by resilience, and powered by a generation that refuses to be left behind. In 2025, Africa's political landscape is undergoing a profound transformation, and at the center of this change stands a new generation of leaders who are young, bold, and unapologetically visionary. For decades, politics in many parts of Africa was associated with corruption, authoritarianism, and outdated systems that did not reflect the aspirations of the people. But today, the tide is shifting. Across the continent, young voices are rising, demanding accountability, transparency, and justice. These leaders are not content with inheriting broken systems. They are rewriting the rules of governance itself. This new wave of political leadership is being driven by the continent's youth, who make up the majority of its population. Unlike past generations, they are globally connected, digitally empowered, and socially conscious. They see how governance works in other parts of the world, and they are determined to adapt and innovate for their own contexts. They are not waiting for permission from the old guard. They are claiming their seat at the table, and in many cases, they are building entirely new tables. Social movements have become one of the most powerful vehicles for political change. In Nigeria, the hashtag #EndSARS protests of a few years ago lit a spark that has not faded. While the immediate movement was about police brutality, its impact went far deeper. It awakened an entire generation to the reality that change is possible when people unite and demand accountability. From that moment onward, politics in Nigeria, and indeed across Africa, could never be the same again. Similar movements have erupted in Sudan, Uganda, and South Africa, each one a testament to the courage of young people who refuse to be silenced. Many of these young activists have transitioned into formal politics, entering parliaments, local councils, and government institutions. They are bringing fresh ideas about governance, human rights, and economic inclusion. Unlike the politicians of the past, whose power often relied on fear and manipulation, these young leaders derive their authority from connection with the people. They use social media not as a tool for propaganda, but as a platform for engagement, transparency, and dialogue. They understand that leadership in the digital age requires openness and trust. In countries like Kenya and Ghana, young parliamentarians are standing up against corruption and calling for reforms that prioritize the people's needs over political gain. They are introducing legislation on climate action, digital rights, and gender equality. In Senegal, youth-led movements are reshaping the political conversation, pushing leaders to listen to the demands of the majority rather than the interests of a privileged few. These changes may seem gradual, but collectively they signal a revolution in how politics is practiced across the continent. Leadership is also shifting at the community level. In rural areas, young leaders are organizing cooperatives, running for local office, and ensuring that marginalized voices are included in decision-making. They are proving that leadership is not only about holding the highest office, but also about serving communities directly. Whether it is building schools, improving healthcare, or fighting for clean water, this new generation shows that politics must be people-centered. The rise of women leaders is another remarkable aspect of this transformation. African women have always been pillars of strength, but in 2025, their role in politics is stronger than ever before. Young women are breaking barriers, running for office, and challenging systems that have historically excluded them. They are proving that empowerment is incomplete without gender equality. Leaders in Rwanda, Ethiopia, and beyond are inspiring countless others to step forward and claim their rightful place in governance. When women lead, communities flourish, and this truth is becoming undeniable across Africa. One of the most inspiring aspects of this political awakening is the sense of unity it creates between Africa and the diaspora. Young Black leaders in the United States, Europe, and the Caribbean are forging stronger ties with their counterparts in Africa. They share knowledge, resources, and strategies, creating a global network of empowerment. The challenges faced by Black communities worldwide, systemic racism, inequality, exclusion, may differ in form, but the struggle is shared. This unity is turning into strength as leaders on both sides of the Atlantic collaborate to amplify their voices on global platforms. Technology is playing a crucial role in this political revolution. Online campaigns, digital activism, and even blockchain voting systems are beginning to redefine how democracy functions. Young Africans are ensuring that elections are more transparent and less vulnerable to manipulation. Mobile apps allow citizens to monitor government budgets, track corruption cases, and report injustices in real time. This level of participation is unprecedented and signals a future where governments are held accountable by an informed and active citizenry. Of course, the road is not easy. The old guard of politics still resists change. Many young leaders face intimidation, harassment, or worse. Corruption remains deeply entrenched in some systems, and the struggle for fair representation continues. But what sets this generation apart is their resilience. They understand that true empowerment requires sacrifice and persistence. Every protest, every election, every reform is a step toward a better future. This new generation is redefining what it means to be a leader. Leadership is no longer about holding power for personal gain. It is about service, responsibility, and vision. It is about building systems that outlast individuals, about creating opportunities for future generations, and about ensuring that Africa's enormous potential is finally realized. The energy of youth, the creativity of innovators, and the courage of activists are converging to create a new political culture, one that values justice over corruption, inclusion over exclusion, and progress over stagnation. Africa's new leaders are not just transforming their own nations, they are reshaping the global perception of what African leadership means. As we look at Africa in 2025, it is clear that the future of politics belongs to the young, the bold, and the determined. These leaders are proving that empowerment is not just about economics or technology, but also about governance that truly reflects the will of the people. They are teaching the world that leadership is not about age or status, but about vision, courage, and a relentless commitment to justice. The political awakening happening across the continent is not a moment, it is a movement, and like all powerful movements, it will not be stopped. Africa's new generation of leaders has arrived, and they are here to stay. In 2025, culture has become one of the most powerful tools of empowerment for Africa and the global Black community. Politics may shape laws, and technology may drive economies, but culture speaks directly to the soul. It defines identity, inspires pride, and changes how the world sees an entire people. Across music, art, film, fashion, and storytelling, young Africans and Black creators everywhere are claiming their voices, rewriting narratives, and setting global trends. What was once overlooked is now celebrated. What was once dismissed is now defining the global stage. Nowhere is this more visible than in music. Afrobeats, born from the streets of Lagos, has become a global phenomenon. Artists like Burna Boy, Wizkid, and Tems have already opened the doors, but 2025 belongs to an even younger wave of talent. Their beats are not just for entertainment. They carry messages of resilience, identity, and pride. Every rhythm tells a story of colonial struggles, of modern challenges, and of a generation that refuses to be silenced. Afrobeats has moved beyond Africa. It pulses through clubs in London, New York, and Tokyo. It has become a symbol of Africa's creative power and a reminder that culture knows no borders. Film and storytelling are also undergoing a renaissance. Nollywood, once known for fast-paced productions and limited budgets, is now producing world-class cinema that rivals Hollywood and Bollywood. Platforms like Netflix have recognized the demand, investing heavily in African stories. But the real power lies in authenticity. African filmmakers are no longer trying to mimic Western styles. They are telling stories rooted in their own traditions, histories, and languages. These stories are resonating not only with African audiences, but with global viewers who are hungry for fresh perspectives. Through film, Africa is reclaiming its narrative, showing the world that it is not defined by poverty or conflict, but by creativity, strength, and humanity. Fashion has also become a tool of empowerment. African fabrics, patterns, and designs are taking the global stage like never before. Young designers from Accra, Dakar, and Johannesburg are blending tradition with modern innovation, creating styles that capture global attention. Runways in Paris and Milan now showcase African-inspired collections, not as a token gesture, but as serious fashion statements. For young Africans, wearing these designs is more than style. It is a declaration of identity, a way of saying, we are proud of who we are. The fashion revolution reminds the world that Africa is not just a participant in global culture, but a trendsetter. The influence of African culture is not limited to the continent. In the United States, the United Kingdom, and the Caribbean, the African diaspora is reclaiming its roots and finding strength in its connection to the motherland. Black artists, writers, and activists are weaving African traditions into their work, creating a cultural bridge that strengthens global solidarity. From hip-hop to spoken-word poetry, the echoes of Africa can be heard everywhere. This exchange is mutual. Africa inspires the diaspora, and the diaspora amplifies Africa. Together, they are creating a global Black culture that is stronger and more unified than ever before. Language plays a crucial role in this cultural awakening. Young Africans are reviving indigenous languages, incorporating them into music, literature, and digital spaces. In a world where English and French have dominated for centuries, hearing African languages on global platforms is an act of resistance and empowerment. It signals that African culture does not need translation to be valuable. It is powerful in its own right. This revival of language is also a revival of identity, reminding people that culture is deeply tied to the words and expressions of their ancestors. Social media has accelerated this cultural revolution. Platforms like TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube are filled with African creators showcasing their art, comedy, dances, and lifestyles. These platforms have democratized culture, allowing ordinary young people to become global influencers. A dance challenge from Ghana can go viral worldwide in days. A spoken word performance from Nairobi can inspire audiences in Canada. This instant visibility has given young Africans the power to control how they are seen and celebrated, bypassing traditional media that once ignored their stories. Art has also become a weapon of empowerment. Young painters, sculptors, and digital artists are redefining African aesthetics. Their work is bold, unapologetic, and deeply rooted in history. Galleries in New York, London, and Berlin are now filled with African art, not as exotic curiosities, but as masterpieces commanding respect. More importantly, digital art platforms have given artists the power to reach buyers directly, eliminating middlemen and ensuring that the value of their work returns to their communities. The cultural influence of Africa is also shaping global activism. Movements like Black Lives Matter have drawn strength from African traditions of resistance and solidarity. Protest art, chants, and cultural symbols rooted in Africa have crossed oceans, uniting struggles for justice around the world. In return, global activism inspires young Africans to push harder for their own rights, creating a cycle of empowerment where culture fuels resistance and resistance strengthens culture. Sports is another arena where culture and empowerment intersect. African athletes are dominating global stages, not only breaking records, but also using their platforms to highlight issues of race, identity, and inequality. When a young African footballer scores in Europe, or when a sprinter from Kenya wins gold, it is not just personal glory, it is cultural pride. These victories remind the world of Africa's talent and potential, challenging stereotypes and inspiring the next generation. Of course, challenges remain. Cultural appropriation continues to be an issue, with African traditions often imitated without proper credit or respect. But this generation is aware and vocal. They are calling out exploitation and demanding recognition. They understand that culture is power, and that power must not be stolen but celebrated. This awareness ensures that Africa's cultural rise is not just global entertainment, but a global movement rooted in justice and respect. As 2025 unfolds, the influence of Africa's culture continues to grow. From music festivals in Europe featuring African headliners, to Hollywood movies inspired by African stories, to global brands embracing African fashion, the world is finally recognizing what Africans have always known. Their culture is powerful, resilient, and timeless. The new generation of leaders understands that cultural power is as important as political and economic power. By shaping global tastes, influencing narratives, and reclaiming identity, they are ensuring that Africa's voice is heard and respected worldwide. Culture is not just entertainment, it is empowerment. And in 2025, culture has become one of Africa's greatest weapons in shaping its future. In 2025, one of the most powerful forces shaping Africa's future is the rise of business and entrepreneurship driven by young people. For decades, Africa was often portrayed as dependent on foreign aid and external investment. But today, a new generation of entrepreneurs is proving that the continent does not need saving. It needs opportunities, investment, and recognition. This generation is not waiting for jobs to be created, they are creating jobs themselves. They are not waiting for wealth to trickle down. They are building industries that uplift entire communities. Entrepreneurship has become the language of empowerment, and business is the battlefield where Africa's young leaders are fighting for independence and dignity. The numbers speak volumes. Africa is home to one of the fastest growing populations in the world, with millions entering the workforce each year. Traditional industries and government jobs cannot absorb this wave of talent. But instead of despairing, young Africans are turning to entrepreneurship. From small street businesses to high-tech startups, they are building enterprises that not only sustain their families but transform their societies. The entrepreneurial spirit is everywhere, in the bustling markets of Lagos, in the tech hubs of Nairobi, in the fashion districts of Dakar, and in the renewable energy labs of Cape Town. One of the key areas where young entrepreneurs are thriving is agriculture. For generations, farming was seen as hard labor with little reward, but today's youth are reinventing agriculture as a modern, profitable, and sustainable industry. With the help of technology, they are creating agribusinesses that link farmers directly to markets, reduce food waste, and increase productivity. Apps that provide weather forecasts, soil data, and market prices are empowering farmers to make smarter decisions. Young entrepreneurs are turning agriculture into agritech, proving that feeding the continent and creating wealth can go hand in hand. Another booming sector is renewable energy. With Africa's vast natural resources, particularly solar energy, young entrepreneurs are building businesses that bring power to millions. In off-grid communities where governments failed to deliver electricity, startups are selling affordable solar kits that light homes, charge phones, and power small businesses. These enterprises are not just profitable, they are transformative. They give children the ability to study at night. They allow clinics to store vaccines safely, and they empower shop owners to extend their hours. By harnessing renewable energy, young Africans are literally lighting the way toward a brighter future. The digital economy is another frontier of opportunity. Across the continent, e-commerce platforms are emerging, connecting buyers and sellers across borders. Young entrepreneurs are creating delivery services, digital payment systems, and online marketplaces that make shopping easier and safer. Fashion designers, artists, and small business owners are using social media to sell their products to global audiences. A young woman in Nairobi can design clothes and sell them to a customer in New York, bypassing traditional barriers. This global reach empowers African entrepreneurs to showcase their creativity while earning income that sustains their communities. Finance is a critical piece of this puzzle. For too long, access to capital has been one of the biggest obstacles to entrepreneurship in Africa. Banks often required collateral that young people could not provide, and foreign investors were hesitant to take risks. But in 2025, new solutions are emerging. Microfinance, crowdfunding platforms, and venture capital funds focused on Africa are giving young entrepreneurs the resources they need to grow. More importantly, Africans themselves are beginning to invest in Africans. Local investors, business leaders, and diaspora communities are pooling their resources to support the next generation. This shift is crucial because true empowerment comes when Africans own their own economies. The rise of women entrepreneurs is also reshaping Africa's business landscape. For decades, women carried the weight of informal economies, running small shops, selling in markets, and managing household finances. But today, young women are breaking barriers and leading enterprises in technology, finance, and manufacturing. They are proving that economic empowerment cannot be achieved without gender equality. In many communities, women-led businesses are creating jobs for other women, challenging stereotypes, and demonstrating that leadership has no gender. Their success is not just personal, it is societal. Entrepreneurship is also closely tied to education. Young Africans are creating schools, online platforms, and training programs to prepare the next generation for a global economy. They understand that business is not just about making money, but also about building capacity. By teaching coding, business skills, and financial literacy, they are ensuring that their communities can thrive long after individual businesses succeed. This culture of mentorship and knowledge sharing is one of the most powerful aspects of Africa's entrepreneurial revolution. Of course, the journey is not without challenges. Corruption, bureaucracy, and lack of infrastructure continue to frustrate entrepreneurs. Many startups struggle to scale because of limited access to funding or unreliable systems. But what defines this generation is resilience. They do not wait for perfect conditions. They build in the middle of chaos. They find ways to adapt, innovate, and survive. Every obstacle becomes an opportunity to think differently and create solutions that are uniquely African. What makes this entrepreneurial movement so powerful is its impact on identity and dignity. For centuries, Africa was seen as a source of raw materials exported for the benefit of others. Today, young entrepreneurs are saying no more. They are not just producing raw goods, they are adding value, building brands, and owning their creations. Whether it is a fashion brand in Senegal, a coffee business in Ethiopia, or a tech company in Rwanda, these enterprises represent a shift from dependency to self-reliance. The global world is taking notice. International investors, corporations, and governments are beginning to recognize Africa not as a charity case, but as a market of the future. But unlike in the past, Africans now have stronger bargaining power. With their own enterprises, their own platforms, and their own innovations, they are negotiating from a position of strength. They are no longer asking to be included, they are demanding respect as equals. This entrepreneurial revolution is not just changing Africa, it is changing the world. African entrepreneurs are solving problems that affect everyone, from renewable energy to food security. Their innovations are proving that the continent is not behind, but ahead in many areas. The lessons they are teaching, resilience, creativity, and community-driven growth, are lessons the world desperately needs. As we look at Africa in 2025, it is clear that business and entrepreneurship are more than economic activities. They are acts of empowerment, resistance, and leadership. Every startup launched, every business scaled, and every job created is a step toward independence. This is not just about profit, it is about freedom. Freedom to control resources, freedom to define destiny, and freedom to shape the future on Africa's own terms. The young entrepreneurs of Africa are building a continent where success is not imported but homegrown. They are creating a future where Africa is not defined by what it lacks, but by what it builds. In their hands, business is not just business, it is empowerment, dignity, and transformation. And in 2025, the message is clear. Africa's future belongs to its people, and its people are unstoppable. Africa's story is being rewritten, not by outside voices, but by its own people. A new generation of leaders, innovators, and entrepreneurs is proving that the continent's future is not one of poverty and dependency, but of power, dignity, and global influence. From politics to technology, from culture to business, young Africans are breaking barriers and building nations that stand strong and independent. This is not the Africa of the past. This is the Africa of today, bold, unstoppable, and ready to lead. The movement of empowerment has begun, and it cannot be reversed. The world must now recognize Africa not as a continent in need, but as a continent in charge of its destiny. The journey is only beginning, and the best is yet to come. Africa's time is now.